Hi, folks. This is Dr. Taylor. Here we are in week 4, midway, almost over the hump, so that's good news. However, we are into statistical methods, getting into the section 3 of your research proposal, and I know this creates a lot of angst. So, what I'd like to do is do a little review about what is expected moving forward, a little bit about the statistics, what you're expected to do in the discussion boards this week, which will really guide you in developing your section 3 for your research proposal. So first and foremost, let's look at the discussion board. In group 1, we're doing data analysis and results, results critique, and of course in discussion board 4.2, we're doing statistical tests. Many of you have had statistics. Some of you are more expert than others. I don't think anybody is an expert statistician. If you are, please step forward, and I would love for you to help me out with this particular discussion board. However, regardless of where you are in your research knowledge, my hope is that you leave this week and this course with an understanding of the concept of statistical tests, why they're important, what it means for you as a consumer of research and a producer of research, how to select a proper research design for your study, which would yield proper sampling techniques, rigor in data collection, and of course that data collection would segue into an appropriate statistical test that would give you valid and reliable findings or the evidence that you can use in your own practice for policy change, or as a consumer, you can recognize that in research studies that you use in your own practice. So in question 1, we read that it used this table of statistical findings, and you were to look for some demographic variables. You're giving your statistical analysis. Of course, it's based on the learning materials. For this week, I would refer to chapters 16 and 17. I have my pilot text right here in your text, and you're going to answer these questions. Now, some of you had shared with me some confusion about answering these questions, so I just wanted to go over a few things. You'll notice here it talks about some missing information. What that is down here, the p-value should also have a p-value is less than 0.5. For those of you who don't understand p-values, it's important to understand that a p-value ranges from 0 to 1. Now, a statistically significant p-value is 0.05, which is much less than 1. As a matter of fact, 95 points less than 1. And what this really tells us is that you have less than a 0.5% chance of these statistical findings not being valid. Now that's a 0.05 is good, because that means if you conduct a test, 5 people or less than 5 people won't respond to the treatment or whatever you should use. So let's go down and look at these findings real quick. 0.03, quite statistically significant findings versus 0.48, because what this means is the probability of less than 3 people not responding to what is intended. That's a good statistical finding. Versus 0.48. That's less than 48 people. I would not trust a drug if I knew 48 or more people would be likely to not experience the effect or whatever the situation is in your research question. So let's go back to the thread. So I talked a little bit about this in standard deviation that you can read when you look at here you go, standard deviation, the mean. Here's the actual age, the actual standard deviation. This was the median group that you would have on the standard deviation curve, So when I put this right inside your discussion board, by the way, and the discussion board is open to all. You don't have to post first before reading my post or others. So because I'm hoping that you gain as much information from this particular post. So here I wrote a little bit more about what I just shared about the statistically significant p-value. I also shared 2 brief videos on p-values, which you're going to find quite helpful. They're only a few minutes each. And you'll know everything you wanted to know about p-values, but were afraid to ask moving forward. Another important piece to that question 1 is homogeneity and heterogeneity, or that refers to the amount of variability. With homogeneity, there's almost no variability. Although that's almost impossible in studies, especially in systematic analysis and systematic reviews and meta-analysis, you'll notice that there's much more heterogeneity. But in any event, you want to look at variability. And then you want to determine, again, looking at the similarities or differences among the groups, was there variability, and how does that variability fall into the statistical significance of the findings? That is what you're expected to do and know and discuss in question 1. In question 2, hint, again, the focus is on p-values. So you can see when you look at this table, you're looking at the different categories. Know that in the categories, N stands for noun or the population. M stands for mean. SD is standard deviation. MDN is median. And of course, p-values. So your hint is you're going to look at the p-values and determine whether they were good, bad, or useless. Look at validity and reliability. And just answer these questions. So I hope that made it a little bit more clear. Now, in regard to the second discussion board question, okay, I opened up the second discussion board question and I included a little piece on selecting the statistical test for your research. Again, it's important for you to choose the correct statistical test to provide enough rigor to determine the probability. What you're looking for is the probability for drawing a conclusion about a population from your study. So this is a super good video that I think you'll enjoy, and I think you'll find it useful in choosing the correct test. Also, when you're looking at the correct test, I'm looking at the Pollitt book on page 384. Is a table on choosing the test that you can align with this video. And that same table is in the front of your Pollitt book when you open the front cover. I know I had shared that in other areas in this course, but I just want you to know that that's there. And also, you may enjoy this because I like self-testing myself. So what you see is the worksheet for selecting the correct statistical test, which I think you'll really find helpful. And also there is a worksheet with the answers and detailed explanations. So you'll find this really helpful. I would go through this, go through your module, and then you'll make a decision of what works for you in your particular choice for your own statistical tests. You heard me talk about selecting appropriate test tables. There is one in Pollitt and Beck. This is also another type, but most of these tables actually have a goal. Here would be your goal, whether you're going to describe, compare one group, 2 groups. These are most common tests that you'll find, and you'll see that these tests are also listed inside the video. There are other common tests here too. You're not expected to know all these tests. You're just expected to know where to find information and be able to select the test that you want. Information on tests is also in your module under optional videos, but I think the video that I supplied will be very helpful. Okay, lastly, I want to review the quantitative research proposal paper. As you have understood through the whole course at this point, this is an iterative process where we just keep going step by step with your PICO question, with your hypothesis of your research problem, moving on to your theoretical framework. We actually did this whole entire section, although the abstract will be a brief abstract that comes together at the end of your paper. And these areas will be revised once you do your final paper. Please read through all these little elements also in each section before you do your final paper. I will be addressing that once more before the end. The review of the literature is what we did last week. Please mind all my comments about APA. Remember, APA is the accepted format for academics, especially in our program and in a lot of professional practices. And so again, mind my comments and make revisions for your final paper that I had shared last week. I continue to go through the discussion boards on research design. I will get those grades back to you as soon as possible with comments, so you'll know most of your designs are absolutely wonderful, and I was thrilled. So you are at a better place than you even think you are. I want you to be positive and maintain a positive outlook. We're going to get through this course. This is a tough course in 7 weeks. You're the last of the Mohicans, I'm sorry to say. But I am glad that the course is going to be offered in a 12-week period from here because it's grueling on both, all involved. Okay, section 3, research methodology. This is what we're focused on. Last week and this week, you did box 5.3. This kind of was a really good introduction. From here, you can recognize a lot of these elements. This week, you're going to really focus on sampling, recruitment. Sampling includes where, what, where, when, where, what, when, how, when, similar to what a newspaper or journalist is responsible for. Sampling is huge. In Module 4, there's a piece on the G-Power software, and you're going to use that to answer this portion. Protection of human subjects. IRB review is important. You'll briefly go over that. You'll be revising that after week 6, because in week 6, you're going to go through that CITI program. I think it's CITI. It's a program on protection of human subjects. It's required for all researchers. It's part of the IRB process. So I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. Data collection. You'll be focused on data collection. That's why I keep talking about data collection this week. And the main focus is how do you collect the best data to help you choose the best statistical test, or vice versa, to yield the most valid and reliable finding results that other researchers are going to want to use from your study, you'll use in policy or practice changes, and so forth. So that's the kind of stuff I want you to think about when you're looking at your section 3 for research methodology. This is almost the meat and bones of this proposal. Everything's important, but this is where you're really going to work hard this week. And we're going to work through this, through the discussion boards and what you're submitting, so forth. Now, the conclusion, I'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming weeks. So in the coming weeks, you can finally take a little bit of a deep breath, because a lot of this stuff was front-loaded in the first 4 weeks. Next week is qualitative research, and I believe that that has a little bit more of a relaxed flow. You'll use the interview questions that you posted in week 1, and you'll get a better idea of what qualitative research is about, because that is part of this course. But of course, our main focus is on quantitative research, because that's what your quantitative research proposal is all about. That's the deliverable for this course, the main deliverable. Again, the ethics portion in week 6. And 7, actually, aside from that, other than feedback, 6 and 7 is essentially pulling your paper together. So after we get through this week, and you will get through this week, you reach out and ask me any questions, but we're doing this together. Please note all the information that I gave you. I know it's a lot. Take it step by step. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So let's take this one bite at a time, and you're going to get through this. So thank you so much for looking at this. Dig in. Go look at those resources, and you know where to reach me. Have a great week, folks.